Hey, everybody. Mic test, mic test. Hey, we're good. Hey, y'all, thanks for coming. I know it's been a long day. We appreciate having you here. Oh, yeah, even more, I appreciate having Susan Dray here. I'm going to... We are here tonight for a couple of reasons. There are 2 bars, no waiting, so please. And the other reasons have to do with honoring somebody really, really special to us. And I am Chris Haas. Many of you know me. I'm thrilled to be here and have the privilege tonight of talking to somebody that you all have been touched by, whether you know it or not. But not in a bad way. So, talking about Andre Rommel Young, who was born in 1965, better known by the stage name Dr. Dre, American rapper, record producer, entrepreneur, current CEO of I'm sorry, I'm being told that's not correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Susan Dray, more famous. Dr. Dray, if you'll permit me a few words from the tablet here. PhD, CUXP, recognized leader in usability, human factors, and human-computer interaction. She contributed to the founding of the Association for Computing Machinery, ACM, Special Interest Group in Human Factors and Ergonomics. Computer-Human Interaction, SIG-CHI. She was elected a Fellow of the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society in 1994. She was the 2006 recipient of a Lifetime Service Award from SIG-CHI. Just a few days ago, she received the UXPA Lifetime Achievement Award, which we all know is much cooler. She was named a Distinguished Engineer by ACM in 2008. She was Director of Publications on the UXPA Board of Directors of UXPA. Susan pioneered ethnographic research techniques, and she has spent her life crossing the globe, teaching, mentoring, usability testing, improving products, systems, and applications. She founded Dray & Associates in 1993, and her clients include firms like AT&T, Cargill, eBay, Ericsson, Hewlett-Packard, IDEO, Intel, Intuit, Medtronic, Microsoft, Motorola, Nortel, SAP, Siemens, Sun Microsystems, Symantec, Texas Instruments, Trane, and Xerox, to name just a few. She is a PhD from UCLA, a BA from Mills College, both in psychology, board-certified user experience professional. She's given keynote addresses and presentations, workshops, and courses literally all over the world, North and South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia Pacific, and I have no doubt, given the slightest opportunity, Antarctica. In addition, she's published numerous papers and book chapters. She was the North American editor for the Journal of Behavior and Information Technology, co-edited the business column of the SIG-CHI magazine Interactions with David Siegel, who is also here tonight, for many years. And together, they are editors of the Usability Forum. She's a Fulbright Scholar, a consultancy president, an instructor, a teacher, an HFES fellow, author, I'm getting tired here, Chi Academy electee, PhD recipient, ACM Distinguished Engineer, UXPA Director, and rap star. So it is my absolute privilege to spend the next hour and a little bit interviewing her and talking about her highlights of her career. Many folks who have been involved in the behind the scenes have sent me questions and things for her to relate and to talk to. She does not know what those are. And so we have some questions she's prepared for and some questions that she has no idea what's coming. So we appreciate your being here, and we'll also do our best to leave time for Q&A if you have anything you'd like to add, remembrance, a question, a story you'd like her to relate. I would also point out that one of the unfortunate things that can happen when you go to a conference is acquiring kennel cough. And so the Kleenex is not necessarily up here because she's moved to tears, but she's got a bit of a cough. So we're gonna go until we need to stop. And please give her some applause and let's do it. So, first things first. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you found UX and how you got started. This is actually a picture of you, no?
Yes, it is.
So, tell us a little bit about where were you born?
Well, I was actually born in New Jersey, which many people... Yeah,
Jersey in the house.
Yeah. Many people think it is the armpit of the U.S., but it's not. It's not. Well, it's a garden state, exactly. You got
I think she
that.
said it was the armpit of the state.
Oh, armpit of the state. Well...
Oh, no, Garden State.
Garden
Did I mishear
State,
that?
Garden
I'm sorry. Boston, sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. And I grew up in New York and went to school. I was bi-coastal. I went from New York. I really wanted, I don't think my family's going to see this, right? I really wanted to get away. So I went to California from New York. And then I ended up at UCLA, which is where I met David, and went up to Minneapolis, and the rest is history.
Absolutely. Cool. Tell me a little bit about what was your, you have a PhD?
Yes, I do.
Tell me about what you were working on there to get your PhD.
Well, you have to remember that UX didn't exist, right? This is back in the 70s. And so my degree is actually, my PhD is in physiological psychology.
And what was your thesis, your dissertation?
My dissertation was called Behavioral and Physiological Sequelae of ACTH and ACTH 4 to 10 during infancy in rats.
So is it safe to say you're the scourge of the mouse world?
Yeah. Well, rats are not just big mice. They're really different.
English major, so
You and Garrison Keillor.
But so when you were going through getting the degree, and what is it that led you into a more UX-oriented, less medical profession?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I was thinking back about when did I do my first real observations, like formally. We all grow up observing, right? But the first time I really was doing it formally was for my dissertation and a thing called open field, which back in the day, there was a very large circular drum sort of thing that had the floor cut into squares. And you'd put the rat in there and you'd watch how many times the rat crossed a line, reared up, or groomed. And then at the end, you got to count the number of urine puddles and feces. And you had to rate the feces by, well, you can imagine. So, and of course, all of this is being done because rats are diurnal. It was all being done at 2 in the morning. And so that was really my first observation, and I really loved it. I really loved, I mean, not the poop stuff, but it was so interesting. And I realized that, you know, as I was looking for something else to do, because I really hated killing animals. I really didn't want to do that anymore. And the field of physiological psych was very young, so there were not going to be any academic positions, thankfully. So I started looking elsewhere. And first I looked at drug companies and suggested that they do behavioral animal testing before they release drugs, which they looked at me and went, "You're kidding. Stupid girl, go away." And 3 years later, that was where all the physiological psych graduates were going. But luckily for me, that didn't turn out, and I ended up getting a job at Honeywell in Minneapolis, Mindianapolis, as I called it in the beginning. And it was in man-machine sciences, and I can tell you, I really didn't think this was going to be anything I wanted. But the person who was kind of my coach said, "Well, it's a good interview. Just go for the interview, right?" And they called and said they wanted me to come up. And I was quickly trying to count up how many pennies were in my bank account to figure out whether I could afford the ticket. And I sort of said, "Well, I can't come this week, but let's see, my next paycheck." And they started laughing, of course, and the rest, you know, they brought me up, and it was great fun. And so that's how I kind of stumbled into UX, and it was a stumble.
And at the time in man-machine learning, were there a lot of women in the process?
No, I was actually the second PhD level woman. The first one married the CEO. So it was a little, yes. And then when I got pregnant, they started calling it baby machine sciences. It was grim, but you know, those were the old days.
And you mentioned at one point they were trying to figure out whether they should change the name of the field, now that there were women in it, that it couldn't be man anymore.
Yeah.
And how did that play out?
Well, the guys were really pretty resentful at having a woman there in the first place, and they were they were saying, maybe we should change the name. And I'm kind of going, why would you do that? But ultimately, we did not change the name. It's still Man-Machine Sciences, still, to this day.
Well, I asked some of your colleagues to send in some suggestions for all this, and some of the stories came back around the importance of secretaries in the time. Tell me a little bit about what that means to you.
Well, at that time, the computer, which had been built by and for nerds in data centers, right? Accountants and nerds. Maybe those are the same, I don't know. And they had built them for themselves, of course. But when I came in to this area, the computers were starting to migrate into the front office where people were doing word processing on mainframes with old 3270 green screens, or amber if you were really lucky. And the secretaries were pretty flummoxed by it, let's just say. They couldn't figure out how to use it, which is, frankly, I would have been amazed if they could have, because it was not for them, it was for these guys. And besides, word processing was kind of a stupid idea in a lot of ways. But they also were dealing with the organizational change that came about as a result of this. So no longer was the secretary who knew how to book the special conference room and held the keys. Now, all of those things, all of the scheduling was done online. Well, online, quote. And so anybody could schedule that conference room. You didn't have to be the one with a special key. So she lost a lot of her stature, her status. And so it was a really hard time. And because I was, as they called me, the, quote, girl, and I had a lot to do with these secretaries, right? The guys said, you should deal with this, so I did.
So how did you deal with it?
Well, so first of all, part of it was helping the secretaries understand that they weren't crazy, because they all thought they were crazy, and they all thought they were stupid, and they all thought that this thing was, if only they were younger, they would understand it. And so part of it was just kind of helping them feel a little bit more empowered. There's not a lot you can do to change the interface on a command line interface of a 3270 terminal. There's not much you can do. So we did the classic thing you do when you can't change the interface. We did training, So we did a lot of training, and we did a lot of hand-holding and a lot of pairing up of secretaries who were having more trouble with people who were having less. And we tried really hard to kind of integrate all of that together and to kind of take the context into account. And it was far more successful than I would have thought.
And did that carry over into lessons you learned there were helpful later on when UX became a bit more formal, your approach?
Yeah, I think what that helped me, it crystallized is the importance of understanding who is going to be using a system and what they're going to be using a system for. Now, in those days, you couldn't really do a lot about it, and we had the old waterfall method, where you specify the requirements up here, and then down around here, you find out whether it works or not, which of course it doesn't. And so it helped me to be aware of not just how adaptable people were, but also the importance of their context and how you could do things organizationally to help support people, and you could bring technology into the organization in a way that was more human-centered. And so a lot of my work after this point had to do with how to create technology and introduce technology in ways that were human-centered. We actually came up with a big book called the Delta Method. Of course, you have to have an acronym, right? It was Delivering Education to Leverage Technology Application.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was basically a huge handbook that had, all of the organizational change cycle and all of the technology development cycle, and they were sort of put together. And then we had a whole bunch of of tools. Some of them were, readings or checklists or whatever to help managers as they were trying to deal with the change the technology was bringing about. And basically that time, I guess, I'm rambling a bit, had really sensitized me to the importance of the organization and how much an organization can influence whether or not technology is going to succeed.
So after Honeywell, and actually I think I have so Dr. Deborah Mayhew, who many of you may know as a pioneer in the field herself, sent in, the first time we met at Honeywell in 1981, she flew in to meet the new staff. She entered my office at 2 p.m., and we were still yakking away at midnight. We just hit it off so immediately. Sure. And she said in 82 or 83, I went at Susan's suggestion to my first Human Factors conference, and she kindly introduced me to everybody in the field, because, of course, she knew everybody in the field. It was a great introduction to the profession. Well, not that small. I got an awful lot of emails from people. So she said, we've been professional friends and sometime colleagues ever since. She very much deserves the Lifetime Achievement Award. But any special thoughts about experiences with Deborah? It sounds like you hit it off.
Deborah is such a special person. We were both at Honeywell, and both of us were sort of chomping at the bit. It wasn't really fun, a whole lot of fun. But we continued to work at Honeywell, and then somewhere in the early 90s, Deborah left Honeywell to go out on her own as a consultant. And I think that she was either the first or certainly one of the first consultants in the field. And I remember we did a lot of talking about what that was like. So when I went out in 93, I had a lot of support from Deborah. She was a real special person.
Very cool. So some of the folks asked about, what was your American Express elevator pitch? And the quote here is, I met Susan about 25 years ago when she was the manager of a human factors group at American Express Financial Advisors in Minneapolis. Some of our early discussions were about the importance of being able to cost justify usability work in discussion with other managers, prospective clients, and peers in organizations. Please ask Susan about some of the key challenges she faced at American Express in bringing usability engineering into the organization.
Well, this was really fun, actually. So at the time, there were no usability labs outside of the computer industry. They were all in places like DEC and IBM. And, but it was clear that this was something that could apply in a financial services organization. And so I started plotting how we could get a lab. And I found a closet, it was about as big as the podium, and I thought, we could get that, maybe we could get that. And they could move their brooms somewhere else. So luckily, Don Norman's book, which was then The Psychology of Everyday Things, had just come out. And I actually told him this story, and he went, oh, you're the reason. I bought a case of them. I bought a case, and I put them around after hours in the inboxes of all the executives that were on the 29th floor of the IDS building in Minneapolis. And then I started to ride the elevator every morning. And I would listen, because they were talking about it, as a cohort. And, they actually knew about the Mercedes seat controls, They were, hey, yeah, I noticed that. And it was really fascinating. So when they got about 3/4 of the way through, and I started riding the elevator, I'd go in at about 6 in the morning, and I would just ride up and down, and up and down, and up and down for hours. And it's funny, nobody ever questioned me.
I was kind of curious. Nobody noticed, like, is that lady living there or what?
Yeah, I know. You would have thought. Makes you feel good about your American Express card, doesn't it? But when they were about 3/4 of the way through, I put through a request for the usability lab. And I went before the board, and I had Jim Coke Bottle Bottom Robinson, who was the CEO, I think. He had glasses that were about, 2 inches thick. And Harvey Hamburger Hands Golub, who had the largest hands. I suppose that doesn't really sound good these days. But anyway, he had these very...
It was a different time.
Yeah, different time. Really big fingers and very sort of clumsy guy. But brilliant, both of them. And they had, combined IQ of like 7,000 or something. And...
Not enough to notice you riding the elevator up and down all day.
Good point. I know, right? I know. So some of you who are a little bit older will remember that we used to have these things called VCRs. You remember those? And you remember how they used to blink 12 unless you had a teenager in your house, right? In which case it was fine until daylight savings time came and they came and fixed it again. Anyway, so what I did is I took a pro-grade VCR and I gave the instructions to Jim Coke Bottle Bottom Robinson and asked Harvey, Hamburger Ham Scallop, to actually do what Jim told him to do with these little teeny buttons. And it took them about 5 minutes to set the time. Now, these are people who are brilliant, and they immediately said, you know, here's the problem. Setting the clock is on page 5. Turning it on is on page 1. I'm not going to go to page 1 and read to page 5. I'm just going to go right to page 5. So they nailed it. But then that really made them realize that this was actually something that maybe we could do something about. And they approved my usability lab, which was then 3 times as big as the closet. And there it is. Probably kind of looks not that different, except for that terminal there in the corner. Yeah, so we had a grand opening of the usability lab where we had usability of fruit and had people try.
I'm sorry, usability of fruit?
Yeah, yeah. So we had different kinds of fruit out and different implements, including toothpicks, and next to the applesauce there were no implements. And we had people rate the relative usability of different fruit. We took them on walks through the Skyway, the second level of the second level above the street level in Minneapolis is all connected, so you can walk without having your coat on. And they had some of the best ambiguous doors. They were great. You know, the ones where you push and you're trying to pull and all that kind of stuff. And so we took them on a tour of that. And we had a bunch of other sort of usability game kinds of things and had a big hoopla. And it was really successful. We used it a lot. And the part behind the observation room, the executive viewing room, actually proved to be very useful, because we actually got executives in there and quickly realized that we better put a motion detector in there so we know when they were there.
Watching you.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, it was real successful. We also had a quote portable lab that was about the size of the podium that we used as well. So.
Did you ever take it anywhere? Or?
We did. We took it to the helpline on the other side of the floor, and we actually did take it one time, but unfortunately, it wasn't really built for airline travel, so we ended up not being able to do the testing, so we didn't actually use it again.
Now, this was the first commercially available lab in the country or in the world? Or?
It was the first lab outside the computer industry, yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, around that time, CHI was not a thing, and UXPA, then UPA, was not a thing. So tell me a little bit about the origins of both of those around that time.
Well, so in 1982, there was a conference held in Gaithersburg, Maryland, on human factors and computing systems. And some of you were there, I know. And at that conference, it was really exciting, and everybody was like, this was the first time anybody had really talked about this stuff. And we were very, woo, this is going to be fun. And we had a meeting because we didn't want to let the spirit of Gaithersburg die. And so we formed CHI, and it became part of ACM purely accidentally, because there was a woman, Lorraine Borman, from ACM there, and she said, well, we can do this, so she sort of did it. And so for a number of years, we had lots of practitioners. I mean, there were a lot of us who were practitioners who were involved in the very early days of CHI, and there was always a very collegial back and forth. But then, unfortunately, the focus on practitioners started to kind of wane. And I actually was not involved in the founding of UPA. The woman who was leading my usability lab, I sent her for those early meetings because I had Sikai, so she got UPA. But it was really sad, you know? I love this organization, and I'm so glad we have it. And you guys are just like the best. You really are. And
The problem is they know it. Look at them.
and kennel cough for sure. But with Sikai sort of dissing us, it was completely understandable why we would say we don't want to be here anymore. But I think that both organizations lost a lot by not having the kind of association that I think we could have, and I hope we will have. I really hope we will have that again. We've been talking with the amazingly awesome UXPA board. Oh my goodness, I think we should give them a big hand. Amazing, amazing people. So finding ways for us to work collaboratively across that gulf is something I think it's important to do.
And can you tell me a little bit about the picture on the bottom left there?
The green shirts.
Who the green shirt lady was?
Yes, well, so back in '85, the conference was still quite small. We did everything by hand, of course, including, you know, and we didn't even have Post-it notes. I mean, how primitive is that? So the conference committee was small, and so what we did, I and Sarah Bly, who's the one on the that side, I don't do right and left from here, we became the humane interface at the end, at the party at the end, where everybody gets together and say, we did it, and we gave gag gifts to everybody, including the next year's conference chair got a hard hat. And they were all based on little things that had happened during the year. So it was really fun. It was really fun to be able to do that. I mean, I think conference committees get really big, and it can be hard to do that nowadays. But just finding little funny things, you know. I mean, like really funny little things that cost 25 cents, kind of thing. It was really fun.
Very cool. Now, you've been a lifelong member of CHI and UXPA, and I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on people, the fact that you changed American Express by making people pick up applesauce with a toothpick. I think that's awesome. I love the idea. Sorry. But one question of you, you are considered a pioneer in ethnography, and around that time, you did some very interesting travel-related international ethnography work.
Yes.
And from what I understand from the folks involved, there was a fair amount of drinking involved, and so I'm a little curious how that all came
I
about.
don't think I can comment.
So tell me a little bit about pioneering ethnography and also doing it internationally.
Yeah. So one of the first studies, I think it was actually the first study that I did, was a study for Debbie Mrazek, who's on that bottom picture. She's the one on that side. And she and I went to Germany and France and visited, oh gosh, I don't remember how many. I think we had 25 families in the US and 15 in Europe or something. I'm sorry, I don't remember the numbers. But we were in Düsseldorf and in Paris, and the guy in the middle there was our fixer for the second study we did, which was in Düsseldorf and Amsterdam. We were looking at small businesses for that one. And we didn't know it, but the group that was doing the recruiting for us, and we were doing straight usability testing during the day because there were a bunch of things that needed to be handled for HP at the time. So the guy in the middle there, we realized they were, sorry, boom. The market research firm was placing bets on us, saying that they didn't think we were going to get any data that was usable at all. And it was really kind of cool because the first woman we went to was a single mom. I'd just gotten back from Greece. 4.5 hours after we got there, we're sitting on the floor toasting each other with grappa that she brought back. And it was fun. And then another guy brought out this wine that he'd been saving for his kid's graduation, which I felt kind of, guilty about that one, but it was very good. It was very good. I mean, we had to drink it, right?
So during the day, you were doing research for HP in the lab, very
Yeah.
formal, and at night you were going to people's houses and
Yes.
talking to them about the...
We were looking at how people use printers, because this was the printer division. And HP printers, color printers, were at the point where they were just about to become cost effective or cost possible for those of us in normal homes. But they realized, to their credit, they realized that, you know, we're engineers and we know all about how we use printers, but we don't know how other people use printers. So we went out and we spent time in, you know, 4.5 or 5 hours, or in one case in Paris. They wouldn't let us out. It was like 8 hours that we were out in the middle of nowhere. There was wine, though, at least.
In France, there's always wine.
There's always wine, yes.
I have to say, this picture of you in front of what I can only assume is a shower curtain is got to be the most 80s thing I've ever seen. It is phenomenally awesome. I may get it tattooed. I think it's just, that is so cool. So, and you had convinced the company that it was a good idea to go out in the field and see these things, and having done that, obviously it's kind of a mainstay of what we do now.
It is.
Did you have to do learn any lessons? Did you need to convince anybody later that it was really a good thing, or was it all self-evident?
We were really lucky in the beginning. I was really lucky because I was working with people like Debbie who understood why ethnography would be useful. So, you know, she and I would put our heads together to figure out how to approach this person or how to get that guy involved or whatever. But in that particular case, we didn't have to make a big brief. Now, once we got further down the line, then we would, you know, go and talk more about how you can get the kind, you know, the whole qual-quant thing that we go through. We went through pieces of that with folks in different companies.
So from there, your next step in your career was going from managing to consulting. And Claire Marie Carrot, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asked, when did you know you made the right decision by starting Dray and Associates and going independent?
Can't believe
She said,
that
was there a particular client?
You know, the first year that I was out on my own, I was a nervous wreck. I had a fluttery stomach and other stress-related symptoms the entire year because I didn't know whether it was going to work or not. I mean, there was Deborah, there was me, there was Arlene Osella, Pat Billingsley, me. Let's see, there were under 10 of us. I'm not sure whether Eric Schaefer was out on his own at that point. He might have been, but most of us were women. And I really didn't know whether it was going to work. So I think when it finally sort of started to calm down and the phone actually did ring again, and we actually started to get more people asking for our services, then it started to feel, okay, I can breathe. But it's still one of those things where, you know, if the phone rings, I mean, people think that consultants have all this free flexibility and all that, which is such complete nonsense because, you know, you never know when the phone's going to ring, right? So, of course you say yes, even though you've got 7 things already on your plate and you're not sure whether you're going to be able to make this other one's deadline, but you do anyway. You just work 24/7. And I actually pulled more all-nighters while our daughter was in college than she did, which is sad, but... So I think at the point where the phone started to call, you know, people started to call, and there was kind of more of an understanding of why user-centered design and ethnography were things that, or field studies were things that were useful at that point.
Now, you had a little oh my God at this picture. Tell me a little bit about this picture.
I don't recognize it, actually.
No,
I mean, it's obviously me.
I believe this is you in China, or something related to a trip to China, somebody said.
Yeah, could have been. We did a number of studies in China. This, I don't recognize it, but we did a bunch of studies in Dalian that were ethnographic, but then we also did usability evaluations, which you kind of have to, you know, you have to kind of modify things a little bit. You need to be listening to what the folks who are Chinese or wherever, Namibian, whatever, what they're actually saying and what their culture's really like. And they know, and of course I don't. I remember I tried to learn some Chinese, so I learned the phrase for I'm an American, which was like, well, nah, of course you're an American. So I think this was one of the usability evaluations, because there's my camera, my handy dandy camera, and I don't know why I'm looking so stern, but
Well, you're thoughtful. That's the Nobel Prize photo that they do. She was a serious gal. They, you mentioned you're one of only a handful of women in business at the time out consulting, and what was that like? Were there particular challenges for you that only women would really face?
well, it's funny because I think in a lot of ways being a woman made it easier. I mean, there was all that stuff about, could you do it and were you okay and all that kind of stuff. But when you're actually doing the work, I mean, people open up more. It's it's much easier to make people feel comfortable when you're not in any way threatening to them because you're a woman, So I found that it was actually a plus a lot of the times. I mean, yes, you had to go and prove yourself and, all that kind of stuff that all the women in this room know all about, and probably all you guys do too. But it was really doing the actual work, I think, was actually easier.
Interesting. So you were very traveled. You were just talking about Namibia and China, and so the question that came up was, what do you know about world culture? And this quote here from Elizabeth Rosenzweig, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but she said, Susan was on the UPA board when we were launching World Usability Day. Her understanding of UX and world team dynamics was a huge, huge help. Specifically, Susan understood that working in different countries around the world was not simple, and that cultural differences hindered creating successful global teams. Susan helped me realize that cultural differences were innocent. People were not being difficult for no reason. She taught me that we had to apply the skills of UX to ourselves, and we had to understand that we do not all think the same way. As UPA and WUD expanded globally, these lessons became part of the foundation that we're building on today. And you're nodding. It sounds like that rings true.
Well, yeah, I remember a lot of those conversations early on. And it's so easy. The thing about that these are innocent differences is so important because it's so easy to feel like they're doing it to me. Why are they being difficult? And if you realize that it's just a really different way of seeing the world, then it takes that kind of out of the equation. So yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about how to include people in a human-centered way, right? In decisions about World Usability Day, and how to make the whole process fun. Actually, I'm kind of a big proponent of fun, as I think some of you know. So yes, lots of fun. And this was one of the times we were. This was in China, and we were walking around in a housing development. Pardon me. And these little kids were running around. The taller guy was our fixer and translator, and so we just spent about, I don't know how long, just chatting with these kids. It was really wonderful. We had a lot of fun.
I asked people to send pictures of you and whatever they felt like sharing, and so there were some more photos of you in various locales. And are these familiar?
Yeah, for sure. The one with me and the camera is in Mount Road, which is a computer and electronics market in Chennai, right, David? It's in Chennai, and this is where people go to tell the builders, exactly what kind of processor they want, and all this kind of stuff. So we spent a bunch of time there. We were trying to understand how people how people made decisions about purchasing computers, and how that was different. And these folks were the top and the bottom of the pyramid, so they had enough disposable income to be able to consider a computer, but it was a huge stretch. And it was interesting because the folks down in the other corner, we were they were talking about the process, which is fundamentally different from the process that you and I would go through, in all probability, checking on the web and going to Best Buy to see it and ordering it from wherever on the web. So, but these folks would not do that. So, the upper one, I think this was also in China. I think this was we went into classrooms as well. This was a different study to try to understand classrooms and also internet cafes to try to understand how folks were using the internet at that time. So it was very interesting. It was pretty early internet stuff.
And I understand those things are desktop computers,
Yeah.
which
Yes, they are, actually.
they're rare nowadays, but
Exactly. Do people still have those?
oh, I imagine someone. Chauncey's got them all,
Chauncey-
actually.
Yeah.
He collects the whole set. So I won't ask you to go through these, but as I say, I asked for pictures, and boy, did I get pictures. I did have a question about the family in the middle that you're doing some sort of scary research with.
It doesn't relate to big hands.
Very, very, I'm not sure what those needs were, but that seems like a very focused demographic somehow.
Yes, it was. Well, we were doing, Debbie and I were doing a presentation to the European Society for Market, SOMAR. I don't remember what that stands for, but it's the European Market Research Organization. And they did not do, field work. And that was really like radical at that time. And if they did anything even remotely like it, it was an IDI, an in-depth interview, right? It didn't have anything to do with context or anything. So what we did is we made a balloon family and then proceeded to do a visit with the balloon family, giving them, asking them questions, and then talking about the kinds of information that we got out. It actually worked really well until the middle balloon broke. But
Junior's dead. Oh no.
right, exactly. Ah.
I don't know. Is that a good research practice to just make up your own people and then get data from them?
Well, it worked
questionable,
there.
but it clearly worked for you.
Yeah.
I was also. This is just a cultural note, particularly you two in the middle there, but in the other pictures, for some reason it struck me you and your colleagues were often wearing very long skirts to do all this, and I was thinking, wow, it must be hard to do field research, with all that cloth around.
Yeah.
So
It was.
things have changed a little bit. I wouldn't
Yeah,
necessarily.
they
I don't
have.
know the last time I saw a full dress in the field that way.
I mean, part of these were salwar kameez. When I'm in India, I wear a salwar kameez, which is basically a pair of pants and a tunic and a scarf. And I'm obviously not Indian, but it's just a little gesture that kind of says that I want to hear what you have to say instead of going in. I mean, not that there would be any problem with me going in, but it's just that little extra thing.
Just to give you the chance to, is there anything else you'd like to comment on about this sort of tableau of
Well, let's
you
see.
in interesting places, and apparently using that poor girl as a camera rest? But
Yes. So this was a very interesting project we did for Microsoft, looking at, we were using lead user research to look at global education and to identify best practices. And this actually was it's a very old camera, but I still have it. Me and Chauncey, we have the good old stuff, right? And we were trying to understand this particular place was in a little town, Karakura, outside, the middle of nowhere, outside of Mysore. And there, a guy named Matt Cam, who now works for Google, and was my mentee for many years, he was doing his dissertation where they were taking flip phones, Razor flip phones, and creating games for English language learning that were based on South Indian schoolyard games. So we went there and spent a couple days, and so in addition to videotaping all the kids and stuff like that, we did a wonderful walkabout. I had the kids take me and show me the whole area around the village. And then they started, the one I liked best, which I couldn't find actually, was they started asking me questions in English, like, what color is the cow? And, so they were trying to show that they knew English. It was really fun. So we learned a lot. That was just one of, I think we were in, oh gosh, I don't even know, 15 countries maybe, all over the place.
Amazing. And the captions that came in with some of these pictures were, team in Japan, team in India, team in, it was really quite amazing to see that breadth of expertise and all the folks that you were, getting to see out there in the world.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions about publications. You were the director of publications for UPA, UXPA.
Yep.
The Journal of Usability Studies is considered a mainstay of academia.
Yes, it's a great journal.
Tell me a little bit about your experiences as the director of publications.
Well,
any particular challenges or lessons learned?
It was a wonderful time, actually, and Catherine Campbell can join me in this.
Catherine's covering your face. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Catherine was on the board with me. And it was a point at which the cost of UX magazine and paper was just getting out of hand. And the question was, why isn't this online? So it took quite a while to actually make that transition. But I'm really proud of the fact that we set that up. We also, with UX, I think my favorite thing that we actually did was to take summaries of each of the articles and translate them. And at that point we were doing, let's see, I think we were doing Spanish, we were doing Chinese, Korean maybe? Yeah. Korean and Japanese? No, something like that. There were three languages. Now we're up to, I think, 6, something like that. And I'm really proud of that, because that was a process that, we just have to find ways to make information accessible to everybody. And when you don't know whether that's I don't know whether I want to struggle through this article because it's going to take me a long time to read it, because English isn't my first language. So if you have an abstract that you could read, you could go, or, oh, that looks interesting, and then decide to struggle through it. And with Juice, it just kept getting better and better. And I'm so proud of where things have gotten. And I think, it's just an amazing opportunity here at UXPA to see how well publications can be done. I'm constantly bringing up UXPA publications to the board at SIGCHI, where I am now on the SIGCHI board. And
and I think especially for an all-volunteer organization to be able to create something so continuously, and I was amazed when I got involved with the board here to really focus on the nuts and bolts of, this is a whole publishing house inside and a crew that has I've worked in publishing, and it's a beast that's got to be fed. You've got to whip all your writers into shape and get them to actually produce, and you've got to edit it, and you've got to get it formatted, and you've got to get it printed, and it's all on deadline, and it's no small matter. And it was, I think it was surprising to me how complex and how tight a ship that was.
It was a huge shock, let me tell you. Thanks, Lyle. Lyle Kantrovich and Whitney, the two of them sort of urged me to run for Director of Publications.
Well, clearly the right choice.
Well, it was a lot of fun. In retrospect, it was a lot of fun.
So a very serious question that came up many times: what is up with socks? So this was a quote from Mario Alberto Moreno Roca, who said, "It is a well-known fact that Dr. Dray loves hearts, and she is always covered with them. She's got hearts on her socks, on her suitcase, and her clothes. She's even got tattoos of hearts. My wife, Ileana, got so impressed with her stories about how you can give from the heart that she is thinking of getting a heart tattoo herself as well. It is hard to prove it, but if you fill your life with hearts, you will see the difference when love is all around you." He just tears me up when he says this. "Ileana started to fill our house with heart-shaped items, and we love it. We call them Las Corazones de Susan, Susan's hearts." So.
Well, yes, I do actually wear hearts on my feet.
And if you can't see, she's got Superman insignias and hearts all over the socks.
Right. So this started in 2007 when we were having the first development consortium on human-centered design for development at CHI. And in the middle of that, I sort of had one of those very American moments. And I kind of afterwards sort of go, and I was talking about how it's really easy to wear your heart on your sleeve. And I explained what that meant for those who were not
aware of it. And then, I can't believe I did this. I took my foot up and put it on the podium and showed them my heart socks, which I was just randomly wearing that day. There was no particular heart sockism at that point. And I said, but if we wear them on our feet, our feet will go in the right direction. And so I always try to wear hearts on my feet. And I did get a heart tattoo, which maybe you'll see later.
UX After Dark, folks, stick around. Phenomenal. There's no more to say about that. But lots of people did say, hey, ask her about the socks, so it's a thing. And folks then said, what is with the presents? And someone said, Susan always makes everyone feel very welcome. Her role at ACM Sig Chi as a VP at large is very suitable for her because she always wants to bring everyone on board. She is very creative, she likes to give presents, and they're mostly handmade ones. Amazingly creative, Susan. Dr. Eunice, sorry.
Yeah, Eunice is from Malaysia. And well, I started, when I was a kid, we had, I'm not really sure how it came about, but there was this sort of Japanese practice in my home of always giving something when somebody would come, and always taking something to give to people, as you do in Japan. And it just sort of became the way that life was, So I like to make things for people because it shows them that, I care about them, And I do. I care about all you guys. See, I'm getting all teary now, too. I think what Eunice was talking about was at the most recent development consortium, we had 78 people from 20 countries. We were able to support, I think it was 55 of them, with money from Sig Chi and also from Facebook. And it was amazing. And one of the things I did, I cannot believe how much money I spent on this. I am being reimbursed, though. I spent like $600 on slinkies and, silly putty and, wind-up toys and all this kind of stuff. Because when people are when you're working really hard, and you're having some fun, there's some levity in it. It's so much better, It's just a lot more fun, and we do better work, I think. So the presents are sort of partly a fun, and they're partly to just show people that I really care about you a lot.
Well, I experienced that personally. My first board meeting in Munich, I showed up and everyone was introducing themselves around the table, and we're in a conference room and it's super formal, and I've flown to Munich, and I've heard stories of these people, and many of them are legendary to me, and some of them are frightening, and what are we going to do? And I didn't know a lot of the folks, and Susan's going around the table and she's like, and I brought you a bookmark, and I brought you a bookmark, and I brought you a bookmark, and you get the panda, and I was like, I got a bookmark, it's all going to be okay. And so it's definitely dramatic. And I chose this picture because stormtroopers are not normally the most expressive, right?
That's true.
And the guy doing the giving is like, here, you can have this. But if you look carefully at the guy receiving, he's got his hand up like, for me? Do I get this is for me? So I think you've had that effect to open hearts that way, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So the people were unanimous. You got heart, babe.
Oh, boy.
This was, I don't necessarily read all of this, but Claudia Gutierrez, who may be here tonight, said, I certainly admire her work and strength. Nia Kumar said, Susan is a dear, dear mentor with a gigantic heart. She's infinitely kind and caring and really takes the time to go out of the way for everyone with so much love and generosity.
This is going to go to my head,
What's that?
This is going to go to my head,
Well, I think you've earned it. So someone said, Susan spent a sabbatical in Panama. I remember when we were in our Mexican conference, we had the chance to have dinner with our university's president in his fancy house. Susan talked to him in Spanish, and our president kept talking in English to her. At the end of the night, he gave her one of his books, and we all went back. Susan has a tradition in which she posts her Facebook page in a very thoughtful phrase every day, really early in the morning. Much to my surprise, she used one of our president's phrases in his book, something about education and the path to success. That impressed me very much.
That president is an amazing guy. He was Spanish, and he got out of Spain like right before Franco's. He was warned that he was going to be arrested in the morning. So he fled in the middle of the night with nothing. And he's unbelievable. He knows, 8 languages, and he writes in Catalan as well as in Spanish and English and German and French. He's an amazing guy, really amazing.
Very cool.
Easy to quote him, but...
Dr. Allison Druin said, when I think of Susan, it's how warmly supportive she is of all the communities she plays a part in. Her posts over social media and emails over the years make you feel like she's just sitting across the table from you, sharing a coffee on a breezy spring day.
Thanks, Allison.
Claire Marie Carrot said, when Susan decided to leave American Express and set up her own consulting company, that took courage and vision. She was one of the first to set up such a company, which we talked about a little bit, but
Yep.
courage, vision, heart, these words kept coming up again and again.
Wow.
So, and Dr. Denise Sari said, Susan is so funny. And I said, could you give me an example of Susan being funny? And not that I don't believe this, but I thought, well, what makes you say that? She sent
You're
this
an
picture.
empiricist, right?
She sent this picture, and she said, here's proof that Susan is funny. So apparently this was you at the ACM Sig Chi executive meeting from a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
but she felt no need to explain anything beyond, clearly, you're funny.
It was
So-
a Post-it. It was a Post-it. We had to put it somewhere. So you can tell I'm really thrilled, right?
So tell me a little bit about Susan Dray, badass.
Yo. Well, let's see. What do you want to know?
Well, you used this as your signature at some point.
Oh, yeah, I did, I think. Well, when you got a name like Dray, what are you going to do? Really? Seriously? So, yeah, I'm the original Dr. Dray.
So the story, as I heard it, was that you needed to get a response out of some of your Chi board members,
Oh, yeah.
and you needed it on a certain deadline, and you decided that this would be your signature, and so you said, please return all of your information. Susan Dray, badass. Make the deadline. And my understanding is they all hit the
They
deadline.
did. They all gave it back.
So,
Yep.
This actual photo, no Photoshoppery there. That's
Come on.
So you have a motto that shows up fairly widespread at this point.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your motto.
Well, it's you probably know, if the user can't use it, it doesn't work, right? And I don't, it's sort of from the mists of time. I remember we were working on, this was back at Honeywell, and I was working with engineers, and we were working on like really engineering things. And they would say things like, if it fails because of an engineering flaw, it's failed. And I was going, yeah, well, it's the same thing's true for people. So that's when I started saying, if the user can't use it, it doesn't work. And it just kind of stuck. I kind of like it.
So lots of things that came up about why is she so positive? And so folks said, well, Dr. Dray was in Mexico. We stopped by a hairdresser place. She asked in her very polite and proper Spanish if she could take some pics around. She did, said our goodbyes, and then we continued our road to the conference. I asked her why she did that, and she told me a friend of hers has a large collection of hairdresser parlor pictures from around the world, and that he'd be very happy to receive some pictures from rural Mexico. Since then, every time I cut my hair, I attach pictures of the hairdressers to Dr. Dray.
And I invite all of you to do the same. I also collect pictures of refrigerators. So just
Chauncey, I understand, collects pictures of monitors at Disneyland, so you guys are made for...
match made in heaven. What can I say?
It's such a weird field, isn't it?
It is.
So Susan had many downs in life in recent years, but she always finds something positive and always emerges stronger than before. For instance, she went to Panama on a Fulbright, and when she returned, she had a major scare and thought or was told she had a short time to live.
Yeah.
But she emerged with a new Just for Life. And I don't know if it was a typo, but I just thought Just for Life was
like that.
so perfect that...
I like that. I like
So I left it, I didn't correct it, and I don't know, but I think we should all say Just for Life as opposed to Zest for Life from now on. So Annika Peters.
Yeah,
something.
she's one of my mentees. I have a number of them. Neha is also. And Anisha is amazing. She went from Namibia to Iowa State, where she did a PhD on a Fulbright. She did a postdoc with a friend of mine, Margaret Burnett, in Oregon, and now she's the dean of the Polytechnic, or whatever it's now called, university. She's the dean.
it's like, how did that happen? I know a dean. Whoa. So, yeah, she's pretty cool. And yeah, when I came back from Panama, I was really, really sick. And we thought it might be what's called Chagas disease, which you probably don't know about now, but you probably will know about in the next 10 years. It's a really bad bug-borne deal. And I was very lucky that it turned out, you have to have, the CDC is the only place you can get the drugs for it. And they're not FDA approved, and they're really terrible. And you have to have 3 blood tests, and you have to have at least 2 of them positive. And I had 1 of them positive, so it's like, don't have Chagas. So that was really good. I was really happy when I got that note back.
Well, us too. So what's up with the beads? A lot of folks mentioned, so Arnold Lund asked, how did you start, and what did you find most satisfying about working with beads?
Well, I started after a trip to Africa for Interact, and I was in South Africa and also in Cape Town and also up in Nairobi. And I was very impressed by the cause bracelets, like Save the Rhino and, literacy and all that kind of stuff. Little stretchy bracelets that were made by the elderly people in the townships and were then packaged and sold, and all the business stuff was done by the young kids or young adults who were, with terrible unemployment rates, so they got a good job. The older adults got a chance to be together, and, they all got to learn from each other. And a third of the money went to pay them a living wage, a third went to get more materials, and a third went to the charity, the Save the Rhino or whoever. And, we were living in Oakland, which has a really bad crime situation, and there's a lot of disillusionment between the kids and the adults. It's not the best. And I thought, this might be an idea. I mean, not that I'm going to be the great white savior here, but I thought, this might be something that might be useful for the community. So, but I didn't want to give them my own bracelets. I wanted them. So I went into a bead store. Let's just say that an addiction was born. Yeah. I mean, I really love beading because it's kind of a Zen thing, I think. You're sort of in this other place, and the beads kind of talk to you. I mean, I know it sounds a little strange, and that's not after drinking. But you start playing around with the colors and things like that. And it's really, really a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
My mom was a weaver, and I grew up with looms in the house.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a inkle loom that I have, which if you haven't seen an inkle loom, it looks like sort of a long frame, and then it's got dowels on it, and you wrap thread around it, and you can relatively easily make a belt. It's all in how there are little heddles on it, and what's up or down determines what the pattern is, and so you do 1 up, 2 down, 1 up, 2, whatever the pattern is.
That's cool.
And I found that very meditative, even in college, of being really stressed and too much in my own head. You could plant your foot on the end of the thing and just weave for an hour or 2, and at the end of it, you had a belt and like 8 bookmarks.
Exactly.
It was very satisfying.
And one of them had a panda on it for you, right?
Yeah. And the panda on the bookmarks.
Yeah, right.
So it was. I found that to be very meditative. Just you could take yourself out of your own head and solve your problems in your subconscious.
I also really love making things for specific people. Like a friend who is having a challenging time, making something for her, thinking about her, with every single bead. It's like, and sort of putting energy into it so that, when I give it to her, hopefully it will feel like she's loved, because that's what's in it.
And I had noticed that you wear a lot of beads, but I hadn't known that you make them. Yes. And when I asked you about it a few days ago, you said, and this one's from Panama, and this one's from... And so there's a story behind many of them, apparently.
Yeah, much to my darling spouse's chagrin, I collect beads when I go traveling. And so, I have beads from when I was in Panama, and it's really kind of cool, actually, because you get to kind of remember the trip, based on where, which beads you're using. It's really fun.
Very cool.
But I haven't done any here in Seattle, David, so you don't have to worry.
The bead shop has not been raided yet.
Right.
So one of your admirers said, Susan will always stand by you, support you, and build you up with everything she's got. And she really stands for making a difference in the world, whether it's through beads or boulders. And I'm not sure where boulders comes into the equation. Is
I'm
there
a
a story
boulder
there?
roller. I help roll boulders out of the way for people. And Neha's one of my star mentees, and we've had a number of boulders that have had to have been rolled. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So he said, honestly, my world is, he, she, I don't know, Neha, she? he?
Neha, yeah, she.
She. Honestly, my world is significantly better since I got to know her and work with her. She's not just good for the work, but good for the soul. I wish her every kind of happiness and send her many, many hugs. And hugs, by the way, are what Susan is best at. So I encourage you to partake later.
But it's funny because when I got the service award for Sikai, I don't know, I missed the introduction because I was setting up a panel. But anyway, I was told that the reason they gave it to me was because I introduced hugs into the Kai conference. Whoop-de-doo!
Wait, we can touch each other? This is a whole new game. What?
Yeah, really. I also signed my emails hugs that you might have noticed.
I have received one or two yet.
Yes, you have.
I think it's awesome because usually I'm in sort of cold business mode of doing and doing and doing it, and I go, oh, hugs. That's so nice. It's like a panda bookmark, you know. You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I'm a human being. So I have benefited from that, and I appreciate it. So one of this was surprising for my own lack of knowledge of. I think of people who get Fulbrights often as young in their
Kids.
career, kids
Oh,
or
kids.
straight out of college or grad school. So you got a Fulbright. Tell us about
Oh,
that.
I mean,
What up?
what was that, you know? I mean, I was shocked. There was a blast to the Sikai announcements list. And it came in on, I don't remember, I think it was a Friday. And it said it was specifically for somebody in HCI in Panama. It's like, that's never going to happen again. And so I talked with the program officer, and he said, yeah, you can apply. I mean, it's okay. You don't have to be a professor. And in fact, we'd actually like to have you not be a professor. So it was one of the most wonderful experiences to think about and write the application. I mean, I really encourage you guys to look at the Fulbright listings and plug here. I really encourage you to apply for the Fulbright Specialist roster. The Fulbright Specialist roster is a group of people who are certified, so to speak, by Fulbright, that are called for 2 to 6 week gigs, basically, all over the world. So I'm going to be going to Nairobi to speak at Africa in November, sadly on Thanksgiving Day, and then going to Namibia to do a couple weeks of curriculum development, and that's going to be on the specialist roster. So it's an opportunity for you to get your, to jump in, and I really want to have more UX people than just me on the specialist roster, because once we have lots of you guys on it, then we can actually start doing all of the agitating that we know we need to do to get UX really embedded in all kinds of places around the world, not just here in North America or in Europe.
Cool.
So please do that.
Who is this with you in the picture?
Oh, this is a friend of mine from Panama. She is she's amazing. And this was on Mother's Day, actually. We went out and had a feast for Mother's Day. She's one of the people that I met through, I went to an English-speaking church because I thought this would be an opportunity for me to be around people who weren't, folks at the technological university. And the people were just amazing. They were just wonderful. She's Panamanian. She spent some time in these States, and it was just, it was lots of fun hanging out with them, Really enjoyed it.
And you may have noticed the URL, so that's your blog.
Yeah, that's
so
my blog.
if you'd like to read more about her experiences, her blog is up. And one important question, I've seen this guy lurking around you time to time. Who is this guy?
This guy has my heart, let me tell you. This is David Siegel. He wouldn't change his name when we got married, and he's regretting that because he's been hearing that for almost 40 years.
Mr. Dray, please, Mr. Dray.
Yeah. He said David Dray sounded dumb, and I said Susan Siegel sounds silly, so we just left it the way it was. We met in grad school, and David trained as a clinical psychologist and did clinical work for many years, and then was able to lure him away, and we worked together as consultants for many years, and now he's working at Google, so that's
And
really.
you have some responsibility for opening his eyes to UX-related work?
Well, I like to think so. I'm not sure he would agree.
He admitted it.
He admitted it. Okay, good. Excellent.
And this picture, are you getting married or folk dancing?
That was, that was our marriage.
That's your marriage, okay.
Yeah, we got, so I was at Honeywell, and I knew that my 30th birthday was coming up, and I really didn't want to be in Minneapolis alone on my 30th birthday. Honeywell had agreed to send me down to UCLA to defend my dissertation. So I thought, okay, great. So I went down, and my advisor, we won't go into that, she said, I know you're here to get married, and if I hear you're getting married, I'm gonna fail you on your orals. Because we actually were planning on getting married too, so it was all very shh. And so I took my final orals on a Friday. We got married on Saturday, and I turned 30 on Sunday. And I never can remember which day is which.
So the anniversary is one of the three, but
yes.
it doesn't.
So, you could tell it was a very sort of hippie-ish kind of thing.
Well, there's a Neil Diamond thing going on with you, David, that I am deeply envious of. I've never had hair that resplendent, so that is amazing.
Yeah. He looked like a terrorist.
Oh, no.
He
actually
on
looks.
his passport. On his
You kind of look like you got a little eyebrow thing going on. I'm like, the eyebrows are going up and down in that photo.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I made that shirt for him, and then I embroidered it with California field flowers. So, yes, and we had to sew him into it because I didn't get the cuffs finished. So, and they're still not finished, however many years later.
You did manage to escape the shirt, apparently. It's sewed in directly.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen enough Project One Way. I know what that's like.
Yes.
So my understanding is you're also a wine aficionado. Some people wanted to know, is your love of wine, or is there anything about being a collector of wine that UX helps with? Anything you learned?
I don't know how to answer that. David is actually the winophile. Isn't that how you say it?
The wiener file?
The wiener. Yeah. The wine.
Just gonna let it go.
Yes. I'm not gonna go there. He has big hands. Anyway, yeah, he knows all about wine. I drink wine. I like wine, but
So that's a good combination. He's acquiring, you're consuming. That's
right.
That seems to work very well.
Yeah.
Explains a lot of the relationship, I think. But you guys, I've known you for a few years now, and I think as a fan of both of you, you do seem stronger together and incredibly impressive apart as well. So you seem like a good fit. So
he's a pretty amazing guy.
seems like it worked.
He's a really amazing guy. I'm a big fan.
Say that again. Well, this is about you, yes. Well, the
okay.
power behind the power, right? So now one of the things that came up a lot was you mentor how many people? So.
Well, it kind of depends on the day. 25 or so, something like that. I'm not exactly sure because some of the folks that I have mentored in the past, I'm not mentoring anymore because they've grown up and gone on their own way. Some of them have left the field, and others are, now working in, they mentor me, which is great. I love it when that happens. But yeah, I think that we all need help sometimes, and I figure if I can help somebody get through, whatever it might be, it was, it's a good thing, right? And I love kids, all of you kids, I'm old enough so that I can say that, right? You're all kids.
So we'll find out from the Twitter feed later if that's okay or not. Rich Gunther, who's here and has known you for a long time, said, for many of us in the UX field, Susan is like a mother. She's always been very nurturing and taken a genuine interest in us youngins. Of course, we're not so youngins now, but she also doesn't spare the rod if she thought we were acting out. I have also been on the receiving end of this. I believe at the Vegas conference, when seeing Ronnie Batista and I acting buffoonish, she sternly called me Richard. And I could have sworn it was my own mother, who she actually knows well, so it might have been intentional. I have also occasionally received a Christopher.
If I knew your middle names, I'd use them.
That you'd really know I was in trouble. Is the only time you ever hear your middle name is when someone's going,
I think
really.
so. Yeah, don't you think?
Now we know what they're for.
Yeah, really.
Mother came up a lot, and it came up a lot. In particular, someone admitted to sending you Mother's Day cards as a thank you, because in effect you were like a mother to her professionally.
Yeah.
So, and just for timekeeping purposes, we're getting down to the end here. Thank you very much for your patience. A few more questions, and then we'll let you guys do some. This is a longer quote by Danielle Cooley, and Danielle, besides being an awesome person and a consummate professional, she has actually sponsored the recording and the captioning of tonight's session. So if you see it later, please give Danielle a thank you. She also unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, and she said that was part of why she sponsored, was she wanted to be part of this and celebrate. And she said, I was co-chairing the UXPA 2013 DC conference. She hadn't met you before in person, but knew of you. Susan had recently concluded her service on the UXPA board, had just been awarded a Fulbright scholarship, and was in DC as a volunteer. What? One of the most experienced and esteemed practitioners in our field was getting up for 7 a.m. volunteer meetings and slinging badges at the registration desk.
Sure.
Wow. Now, no one who's known her longer would be surprised, but I was overwhelmed by her humility. She had time for everyone who wanted to chat with her. She had guidance and support for the most junior practitioners. And more than that, she listened to them and learned a few things herself.
Yeah, I always learn a lot from her.
She also helped me personally by providing brilliant, thoughtfully presented recommendations to improve the volunteer experience the following year, even though she wasn't going to be there because Panama. She could easily have just attended the conference and spent her time catching up with old friends, as many of the old guard did that year. She could have skipped it if cost were an issue, but didn't just show up. She didn't just teach people things. She contributed to the needs of the organization and the profession as a whole, and I was just floored. I hope I am that thoughtful, humble, and helpful when I am only 3 years away from my own Lifetime Achievement Award. She's still working on mastering your humility, of course. But, so.
Wow. Danielle, I think you are overstating it a bit. But being a volunteer is so much fun. I mean, you get to meet really cool people. You get to do kind of cool things, right? I mean, and you get to you give out badges to people, and you go, oh, hi Chauncey, or whatever. It's lots of fun. Lots of fun. I liked it. I didn't like the shirt so much that year. I think the shirt this year is better.
Oh, good. Design-wise or fit, or what are we?
Color.
Color.
I'm not a big fan of gray. But.
Duly noted. So we want to say thank you, and I got this great message from I can't see from here. Oh, Allison. And she said, thank you for not only what you're doing, but also even more importantly for who you are and the way you interact with the world. You bring a sense of calm, really, and optimism. We can solve this. And love, the most important ingredient in life, in my opinion, to every interaction. I suspect it doesn't always feel that way to you, but remember the swan which glides across the water, the way you seem to all of us, and whose legs are paddling as fast as they can under the surface, unseen by everyone else.
That's true.
And I thought, that is a phenomenal thing to say, right? Except it turns out that when I questioned the email, that this was something Susan wrote to her.
Yeah.
So as appropriate as this is for you, this was you
totally.
giving a thank you to someone else.
Yeah, Allison chaired the most recent CHI conference.
So if
Awesome.
the best praise we can give then is to reflect your own words back to you. So I wanted to ask you, just traditionally, I do a couple of the questions based on our namesake inside the Actors Studio. And so if you will permit me to ask you some nonsensical but extremely deep questions.
Okay.
The 10 questions.
All right. 10. Oh, no.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word?
Favorite word.
Lunch. It's nice in the mouth.
Okay.
I don't.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh, that's a hard one. Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
For any particular reason?
It's too long, and who can spell it?
What inspires you?
You guys. You guys inspire me. Because I see all the things you're doing, and I see the people that you are, and it's just awesome. I love meeting you guys and being with you guys and spending time and learning from you guys. I mean, it's like you charge me up. Thank you. You're my electricity for my electric car.
What turns you off?
Apathy and cruelty, especially cruelty. I don't like that.
And this is my heads up to the sound guys. Last time we actually almost killed a guy. So, what sound or noise do you love?
I don't think I can actually say that here. Right,
You're among
Dave?
friends. Inquiring minds want to know.
Well, I guess I love you.
That was not where I felt like that was going.
Well, you're
What
not the tamer.
sound or noise do you hate?
I don't like cacophony, and I'm not a big fan of Eric Satie, the composer.
Take that, Eric. Sound guys, you're in the clear.
Yeah.
What is your favorite curse word?
Merde.
All right, sorry, sound guys. I should have
Sorry.
let that. A little too early on that.
Misplaced, yes.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
That is interesting, and Jen asked us that yesterday, and I felt like I completely blew it because I hadn't really thought about it, and I still haven't really thought about it. I think I would love to be a teacher because I love teaching, and I love being around people. I think I would like to lead interesting tours of parts of the world, like the south of France, that I know and love. Like, we've been to the south of France, and there's this group called the Cathars, which I won't tell you all about because we're late on time, but we've talked about leading tours to give people a really in-depth sense of what those people were like and what their impact on the history of France was. So I would think I'd really like to do that too. And I do like beating a lot.
So professional beater?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. The problem is the minute you start doing something professionally, it stops being fun. And I don't want it to stop being fun.
You seem like you're still having fun in your career.
Oh, yeah.
So
fun to have fun.
what profession would you not like to do?
Well, I don't think I would like to be a plumber. I would make a terrible mathematician. And, yeah, I don't know. I think plumber and mathematician is probably about it.
Or a plumbing mathematician? Do you
Well,
put this
yeah,
in?
or plumbing the depths of math. That would not be me.
If someone were to summarize your career, what would you hope they would say?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would hope they would say that I made a difference.
One last question here. What advice would you give someone starting out in the field today?
That's a good one. I would give them, well, I use this advice myself. So I would, we are translators, right? Between different, and so I would encourage people to learn how to be a good translator, which means understanding your own biases, but also understanding how to draw people out. So that's one thing. And I would also encourage people to do everything they possibly can to learn about the whole world, not just about the people around you, which is very important, but learning about places that, you maybe can't really identify on a map, like Sierra Leone and, the Canary Islands and stuff like that. And I would also warn people against being simplistic and trying to, take something that's really complicated and just boil it down into 3 words, which we get a lot of pressure to do.
But I think it's very important for us to be able to think about things and represent that complexity in a non-complex way. I also would encourage people to trust the process, because user-centered design really works, you know, for lots of different things, not just developing products. And it really works. So I would encourage people to do that. And lastly, I would say, for God's sake, have fun. I mean, if you can't have fun, what's the point, you know? So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Now, you requested to end this on a particular note.
I did.
May I take your mic and allow you to clear your lungs?
Yes.
Blow anything you need to blow. And we will, Susan actually has a costume change here and throwing lozenges all over.
Yeah.
So I will hand you whatever you need here. So please talk amongst yourselves. We'll be ready in just a moment. This is the audience participation portion of the show. And then we will let you go.
Come up and back me.
Yeah, and the board said they would come up and back. Or is this? Do we have any volunteers to come up and help out? Nobody feels like shaking a tail feather today. We'll see. Maybe you can inspire them. It's a tough crowd. Whoop. Losing those. Here we go. Thank you. Ready to go?
Thank you so much.
Got a mic? Oh, you guys rock.
Okay.
All right. I don't know how to hide or sit here.
No,
So,
dance,
you
dance.
good to go?
I'm good to go.
All right. What is your rap? Here's the thing that some might not realize. Susan will rap anywhere to anyone without hesitation. Years ago at the conference, the board was trying to get up and talk about UXPA, in the middle of a very loud reception. She didn't feel like we were getting the attention we deserved, so she belted out, "Hey!" and started slinging rhymes. If a mic drop had been the thing back then, she might have done that too. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go off to the side here. I'm not going that far. I'm going over here. I'll be here.
Yeah.
I'll be right. I have to run the.
hard to do
I'm
this.
spinning the disc here.
Yeah, I
So
need the-
you guys ready to go?
Now, this is a call and response. When I say if the user can't use it,
Just whatever you feel
say,
like.
then it doesn't work at all. Okay, so let's try this. If the
So
user
your
can't
lines are in
use it,
red. Boots and pants and
then
boots and
it
pants.
doesn't work at all. Yes, you're in red there.
Uns, uns.
Okay. We got some beats I haven't tried before.
The beats are new.
From California way to the UXPA comes another visit from the other Dr. Dray. Last time I rapped about ethnography, but this time is different, as you shall soon see. To tell you again about my favorite lessons, things I have learned about our profession, things learned from life and not content sessions. This rap's a wrap-up of this expression. If the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
if the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
you and me, we translate. That's lesson number one. Between many different people, and it's often lots of fun. But it also takes quite a lot of skill. At least if we're going to translate well, it takes quite a lot of intelligence, but not just the head kind, but both head and gut. So we need to be sure to take care and help each other. So we all need support. It's really not a bother. Some of these rhymes may seem a tad cheesy, but please forgive me. This rapping, it ain't easy. If the user can't use it,
It doesn't work at all.
if the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
we must learn from the world. That's lesson number two, which means you can learn from me and I can learn from you. And two from places far away, though sometimes that is harder. But if we learn from everywhere, it's bound to make us smarter. If the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
If the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
Number three is about our thinking. Black and white will just not do, for the world is more complex and more nuanced. And so you must find ways to make things clear. Certainly that is true. But oversimplifying, that we must not do. To take complexity and tame it and to make it understood is a skill that's not the same as simply saying something's good. Or the pundits may not see it when they oversimplify. Our profession is diminished in their audience's eyes, which can make it that much harder to get traction where they've been. So I cannot say to start, this kind of thinking is a sin. If the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
if the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
On to the next. In the process, we must trust for with people at the center. And our teams on board, we must stay focused on the process so we know when we're through, our products will be better because that's That's what we do. If the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
If the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
our final lesson's easy. For when all is said and done, we work and learn much better when we are having fun. This goes as much for us as it does for our teams and our students and all others, even bosses and deans. In fact, this rap's an expression of this thought, whether some think a woman of my years should not be caught or rapping to an audience of younger folks. It's true. This rap's been a lot of fun for me and for you. I hope you can take these lessons all to heart and put them into practice so that you can play a part. But I'll leave with one last thought I hope will help you to recall. If the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
if the user can't use it,
And it doesn't work at all.
if the user can't use it,
Then it doesn't work at all.
woo!
No funciona.
Thank you so much to the backup dancers. Awesome
Yes, you guys are
and embarrassing and awkward. Oh,
In Spanish.
she's doing it in Spanish, no less. So, the incomparable Dr. Dray, a hit on any continent.
Yo.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, all of you.
We'll take a few questions.
Sure.
Do you guys want to? You can hang out here or dance off. How do you feel?
Yeah, I know it's not really a rap.
And
it's
you've been a
dog
real
roll.
trooper fighting through the kennel cough. So
Oh,
thank
yeah,
you.
well,
Please
thank
have
you.
a seat. I don't want to kill you. Any questions from the audience? Anything folks would like Susan to comment on, share a story? There's a gentleman with a mic moving through the audience. Jen wants to keep dancing. We need more rap, apparently. All right. There's no follow-up. We'll just take it out to the streets then. So thank you all so much for everything.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Susan. Congrats.